Well, guys, I've done it. I read the fourth book. And also, this is a library book. Originally, actually, I had a Friends, but that's a long story of why I don't have the Friends copy right now. So, my brother. Anyways, in this video, I'm going to be talking about Battle of the Labyrinth and what I thought about it. Honestly, so far, it is the least interesting, but still good. Okay, good. Before you get mad at me, it was still good. It was still really good, but I just felt like it was the least interesting to me, and I think maybe it's because I just felt like it was a bunch of them just running around doing random stuff, but I'll get more into specific examples as I go chapter by chapter as I usually do. But without further ado, let's get right into the video and start off where I always start off in these videos, and that is the characters you will need to know while I talk, like the names basically. I'm telling y'all, there were so many characters in this book. Like, the list of characters that actually mean something to the story at all is so long. So I'm just gonna read from my notebook, because that's where I put my notes. And the list is so long. Obviously, you have Percy Jackson, Grover Underwood, Annabeth Chase, Rachel Elizabeth Dare, Sally Jackson, Tammy and Kelly, more so Kelly though, Chiron, Clarice LaRue, Quintus, Nico D'Angelo, Hera, Kronos, Daedalus, Icarus, Tyson, King Minos, Luke Castellan, Breris, Campe, Garion, and Iriton. If I ever mispronounce one of these names, just know I'm trying to pronounce these. I don't know why I can't pronounce some of them, but also, of course, Kronos. If I haven't mentioned... Wait, no, I didn't mention him. Never mind. Kronos is on the list. It's Tyson. I forgot to write down. Alright. So that's basically the characters you're going to need to know as I talk about the book. Alright, so Chapter 1. Percy's going to freshman orientation because he's going to be in high school now. And the high school he's going to, actually, is a school where his mom, Sally's new boyfriend, Paul Blofus, works. So I guess so basically that's kind of why he got into this, because apparently it's like, I think it was kind of like a fancy high school or something. So like he kind of only got in because mom's boyfriend works there. So yeah, and like as he and Sally pull up front, he kind of recognizes somebody, and that somebody turns out to be Rachel Elizabeth Dare from... Excuse me, guys. I just had soda like a while ago. Excuse me. Rachel Elizabeth Dare from the last book. Do we remember her? She was at the Hoover Dam. She helped him escape those like undead soldier things. That I remember. It's like I'm trying to remember what I'm talking about. So he decides to take a side entrance into the school, running into two very mean cheerleaders. And then in the gym, by the time he got to the gym for the orientation, it didn't matter anyway, because he and Rachel have a reunion. And it's a kind of odd, because he kind of feels awkward, like, oh yeah, I ran my sword through this girl last year, though it didn't hurt her because she's mortal, and the sword he had was like celestial bronze, I think, so it can't hurt mortals, but still, it's kind of awkward and stuff. And ultimately, Rachel suddenly is like, well, we gotta get out of here, because she's looking at the two cheerleaders that were mean to Percy at the side entrance, Tammy and Kelly. And apparently they turn out to be, and I might pronounce this wrong, Empusas? Basically, they're these old Greek monsters that are apparently really scary looking, because Rachel was really scared. And they end up cornered in a band room. The room gets set on fire, and Percy escapes through a hole in the wall. And they meet Annabeth. Him and Rachel meet Annabeth, because after orientation, he and Annabeth were supposed to meet up, go to the movies or something. And now it's canceled because something's happening at camp or something. So, it's something like that. Something's happening at camp, you know? And so they part ways with Rachel, and Annabeth is clearly very annoyed through all this, and Percy and Annabeth go back to Camp Half-Blood. Now that he's back at Camp Half-Blood, Percy meets a new person that's working there. It's an adult half-blood. Who knew they existed? Huh, quite a shock. And this guy's name is Quintus, and I think he was supposed to be like the arena master or something, like teach them all sword fighting. I mean, that used to be Luke Castellan's job back in like the first book. Does anyone remember that? But basically after meeting Quintus, Percy learns that Grover's in a bit of trouble with the Cloven Elders, who are basically just a bunch of old satyrs who I guess like the leaders of the satyr community. I don't really know. But basically, they said that Grover has 1 week to find Pan. Remember the missing Earth god Pan? That's he's been missing for like 2,000 years and stuff. They're like, you got 1 week to find him, or your searcher's license is taken away entirely. And so he's under a bunch of stress. And also, apparently, Grover has a girlfriend. Like, wait a minute, Grover, since when did you get a girlfriend? Was she mentioned in the last book? I don't remember. It took me so long to read this one, but I think it was just because I felt like it was just a bunch of random events. Like, what, and that's really more so once they get into the labyrinth later, but basically after this, Percy's starting to worry about cabin inspection, because that's important, making sure your cabin's all nice and clean and stuff, but he's the only one that lives in his cabin, so he hurries there just to find it's already cleaned up, and who is there other than his brother, his younger half-brother, Tyson, the Cyclops. Cyclops is the plural for multiple, I guess. Cyclops is one. Alright. And that night, when, it goes, obviously, because Tyson's also a son of Poseidon, he sleeps in the Poseidon cabin, so, like, that night, while Tyson's sleeping, Percy sees that there's an iris message in the fountain. He goes, obviously, Poseidon, god of the sea, there's a fountain inside the cabin, And at this fountain in the Iris message, he sees Nico D'Angelo. Do we remember Nico? He was the son of Hades. He was in the last book. His sister died while on a quest with Percy and crew, And, excuse me, also Talia was never, speaking of the last book, Talia, I don't think her name gets brought up once in this entire book. Like, if it did, it was only like a couple times. Like, I was like, did we forget about Talia that fast? Now, granted, I kind of had my, certain feelings about Talia. I was kind of just like on the edge of how I felt about that character. But still, it's like, are we just pretending she doesn't exist? Like, is she just? We don't bring her up again after she joined Artemis at the end of the last book. But basically, in this Iris message, Percy sees that Nico's talking to some ghost, and he's talking about, killing someone as, a trade to get his sister back. And obviously Percy, knowing how Nico feels about him, is thinking, is he trying to kill me? And that leads us into the next chapter, because now he's scared Nico's gonna come after her. Well, maybe not scared, but basically he's just like, not scared, but he's kind of just concerned. Let's just get to the next one. The next morning, Percy learns that during the night there was a monster at the border of the camp's borders. I was like, why was I stuttering? Oh my god, wait, not stuttering, stammering? I don't know, but which is cause for concern, even though the border is pretty secure. And during mealtime, he's talking to Grover and Annabeth, and they come to realize, wait a minute, I think I know where Pan is. They decide that Pan must be underground in the Labyrinth, which we'll get more into about the Labyrinth later, because according to their logic, the satyrs have searched everywhere but underground, because satyrs don't like the underground. I guess there's not much enough natural wilderness there or something. Maybe it's because the sun doesn't hit there. I don't know. I didn't really get it, because, like, if anything, in today's world, it's one of the most natural places you could find, right? Like, I mean, it's just dirt, stone, maybe some oil way down, like, lower, because, I don't know. And, basically, also, Percy has a chat with Grover's girlfriend, Juniper, and obviously she's all worried about Grover, because Grover's having a hard time with his career right now, searcher's license, that stuff. But then suddenly, some scorpions, giant scorpions show up, attack him and Annabeth, because Annabeth shows up as well, and they end up underground in some weird place. And when they get out, they realize hours have passed, even though it felt like only a few minutes for them. Hours had passed. Everyone had been searching for them. And and this is when they go to the big house to talk about what they had found. That night, Percy has a dream, and it's his usual dream of, like, actual events from the past, and here he sees Daedalus. I might be, like I said, I might mispronounce a lot of names, but I'm trying. Him and his son, Icarus, imprisoned in the labyrinth, because something I haven't mentioned yet is that this labyrinth was built long time ago by a genius inventor named Daedalus. It is believed that he's still alive and is hiding in his old jail cell there and stuff, and basically he learns that they were imprisoned there by a king for whatever reason. That's basically what he learns in this dream, and after that, he meets up with everybody at the big house, and they talk and decide that Annabeth is going to lead a quest into the labyrinth to go find Daedalus and convince him to join their side and stuff, make sure that Luke and Kronos and them can't get the army through the labyrinth into the camp, since there's literally an entrance into there. And and so Annabeth is sent to the Oracle to get her prophecy so that she can officially take this quest and stuff. And meanwhile, Percy has a little chat with Juniper again, and this time she's like, hey, look, I saw Quintus around the entrance to the labyrinth. He was kind of being suspicious over there, sus. Don't trust Quintus. And so Percy's like, okay, I'm gonna trust you, Juniper. But then, Annabeth hadn't returned yet from the Oracle, and it's been a while, and Percy decides to break all the rules and just go find her at the big house, because obviously the Oracle's up in the attic. And Percy, while going there, comes across Clarice, though she doesn't know it, in the basement of the big house, talking to Chris Rodriguez, who I guess was a half-blood that turned to Luke's side and stuff, but now is back, and they found him out in the desert because he went mad, went crazy in the labyrinth or something, and Clarice is trying to help him out and stuff. And basically, Annabeth finally returns, and she's like, I want Percy, Grover, and Tyson to come, even though the rule really is that, only 3 people can go on a quest, because if it's more than that, then somebody's definitely gonna die. Though, spoiler, that didn't happen on this quest, but ultimately, but either way, by the end of the quest, they weren't even really a group anyway, so I guess that's why. Yeah, because Rachel Elizabeth Dare ends up taking the place of both Grover and Tyson. But anyways, Percy, after, Annabeth seems all shaken up and stuff, and, it's pretty clear that she was holding out on what the prophecy said. So Percy goes to see her in the Athena cabin, and it comforts her, but she still doesn't tell him what the last line of the prophecy is, and she doesn't tell anybody that till, the end of the book, so this leads us to the next chapter. So in this next chapter, Percy has another dream about Luke and Kronos in the ship's stateroom. Remember the Princess Andromeda ship? Great cruise ship from, the second book? That's still there. So he dreams about them, and Kelly, the Ampusa from before, is also there, and she seems to see Percy, even though he's just dreaming. And so she tries to attack him. That doesn't work. And because obviously, it's a dream, and he, wakes up. And after this, he sees that there's another iris message in the fountain. So he sees that Nico's raising the dead, including an old Greek hero you might recognize the name of, if you know anything about Greek mythology, Theseus. That's an old character from the myths. And Nico's basically trying to get information on Bianca and stuff, because he really wants Bianca back. But something weird happens. Also, speaking of, the raising the dead, he had to, he had to use food and stuff. He would use McDonald's Happy Meals, and I'm sure it didn't actually taste like McDonald's for, the ghost that raised, or whatever. But it's so funny to think about, that, this dude just gave these guys, McDonald's Happy Meals. But basically, something happens, a person ends up breaking his fountain. The fountain, that's in the Poseidon cabin. And after this, he has a little while after this, Percy goes to talk to Chiron privately, and he tells Chiron what Juniper told him about Quintus and how he's being suspicious and stuff, and and basically, after that, the four of them go off on the quest, which basically a reminder: Percy, Grover, Tyson, and the leader of the quest, Annabeth. And this is when we start getting to the point where I was just struggling to keep reading because it just felt like a bunch of random events. So the two of them wander around four of them. I don't know why I'm thinking two of them. It's like my mind's already ahead to when the four of them split up into two groups. The four of them wander around the labyrinth for a while, basically going in circles and stuff, and they end up back in an area they were in before that has Roman architecture and stuff. And there they come across a guy with two faces. He's actually a minor god named Janus, and by minor I mean he's not an important god in this world or whatever. At this point, it's like the Olympian gods that are important, right? And Hades too, but I don't know. He's not welcome up to Olympus, so. But basically, Janus is trying to make Annabeth make a door choice because he's like the god of choices or something. And doors too, apparently. And Annabeth's kind of just and then suddenly a lady shows up and is like, Janus, no, and this lady turns out to be Hera, who is Zeus's wife. And basically you end up having lunch with her, which honestly isn't it always convenient when the gods just happen to show up with food when the heroes have none and are starving and stuff. Isn't that just convenient? I feel like it happens a lot here. And then sometimes it's not even a god or goddess. It could be Medusa from the first book. But basically, while they eat, I guess they got a wish or something, and Percy's like, yo, I want to know how to find Daedalus' workshop and stuff, and Hera's just like, you already know that, but Percy's obviously like, what do you mean I already know that? And basically she ends up leaving, and to the wishes of Tyson and Grover, the group ends up going to travel through the left tunnel as they continue on their journey to find Daedalus and his workshop. Now, why did Tyson and Grover want to travel through the left tunnel, may you say? Well, it's because they actually could smell a monster down the other one. And so, in this chapter, they're running away from this unknown monster, and they end up in none other than Alcatraz prison. And I'm just like, what? Why Alcatraz? Oh, wait. It's because a 100-handed one named Breres is being held captive here by some very ancient monster named Campe. I'm probably mispronouncing that one. Maybe even both of them. Who knows? And basically, Tyson, I guess, knows Breres and stuff and her legends and stuff from, legends about the guy and other 100-handed ones. And they're literally exactly what they sound like. They would just have 100 hands. That's really all there is to them, I guess. And basically, Tyson's like, yo, we have to free him. Do you know how awesome he is? And so they end up freeing him, and they get chased around by Campe quite a bit. When finally they get back to the labyrinth, and Breres is not really, Breres, he's having a rough time, honestly. The guy's scared, and that leads us to the next chapter. So now that they're safe back in the labyrinth away from Campe, Percy and the rest of them fail to get Breres on their side to help them out and stuff, and Breres just gets the guy. He's probably terrified. He was there in the first war. He's probably like, I don't want to deal with this again. So they end up camping for the night without Breres. And while he's sleeping, Percy has another dream about Daedalus' far off past, where he and Icarus finally escaped their workshop prison with these little white wings, these wings to fly or whatever. And Icarus, being a child, was having too much fun with the wings being soaring and stuff, and he ends up falling into the sea and dying. And when Percy wakes up, he realizes, wait a minute, Nico is here in the labyrinth with us. And ultimately, he and the other three end up at a ranch, and they find Nico here. And this is when Percy learns that Nico doesn't want his soul, and also that the ghost that Nico has befriended is actually King Minos from Daedalus' past. You know, the king that imprisoned him in the first place. That can't be good. Not that Daedalus is much better. I mean, actually, he is better, but like. He is better than King Minos, but still, I mean, Daedalus does some questionable things. For sure. But basically, at this ranch is basically run by this guy named Geryon. And there's a half-blood that's the son of Ares that also works there. Like, an adult half-blood, by the way. Like, this guy's like 2,000 years old or something. Don't ask me how. Because honestly, I don't know. But basically, they get a little tour, and they realize the Warriors sold off to Kronos' army, so Percy makes a deal that if he can clean all the horse manure in a stable and just fenced an area that's like full of these like flesh-eating horses, like demon horses or whatever, then he has to free everyone. So that's the deal Percy makes, and I'm telling you, this whole section of the book kind of disgusted me because I don't know, it just was like. Ugh. But this is also taking a quick chance. This is also what I mean by like it just feels like we go from random place to random place, which I guess is kind of the point in the labyrinth. But it still kind of bothered me because it felt like we're just doing all this random stuff. Like, oh, we're in Alcatraz. Oh no, we're at a ranch in Texas, I guess. And it just feels like we're going place to place to place, and it just feels so random. But I guess that's the point of the labyrinth. I don't know. Which is good to the next chapter. Alright, so originally, Percy's plan to clean all the horse manure out of this extremely dirty, stables, I guess, he was going to use a nearby river and, like, basically make the water wash it all away, but a Naiad down there stops him because she's, like, mad because it's gonna pollute the waters and stuff, and then she shares something with him and teaches him that he's actually able to, with seashells, summon the salt water that used to be where this Texas ranch is now. Like, you know, because obviously, you know, like, Pangea, all that stuff, like that long ago, you know? And so, Percy ends up doing that. He cleans the stables. He goes back to the big ranch house, the main ranch house, I guess. And because he didn't say in his original deal, like, swear on the river Styx or whatever, apologies for the mispronunciation, I probably just did, but Geryon did not actually have any deal with him. And so Percy ends up fighting him to the death and killing him with a bow, even though he's terrible at archery, you know. And, and basically, Percy ends up convincing Nico to try and summon Bianca one more time because Percy knows that Bianca would just want Nico to forget about revenge and bringing her back and stuff. So basically that's Percy's plan at this point. Alright, chapter 10. So in this chapter, Nico summons Bianca's ghost, and she warns him against seeking revenge for her death and stuff because, you know, son of Hades, you know, he is the son of Hades, and every hero, like every Greek hero in this universe has like a flaw. I think that's what they called it, a flaw. Like I think Annabeth's might have been hubris, and well, Nico's is obviously resentment, revenge kind of thing, and so that happens, and that night, Percy has another dream. He has a lot of dreams in this book. No, seriously, I think this is the most dreams that Percy has had in any of the books so far, but he dreams that Luke will be arriving at camp soon. He's getting closer to being able to get into camp, and he also dreams of flashback back to Daedalus's earlier life. Apparently, Daedalus killed his nephew, Perdix. So, yeah, that's why I said Daedalus isn't that great a guy, but, still somebody you might want on your side. And in the morning, how do I pronounce his name? Eurytion? The other guy, not the guy who was in charge of the ranch, but the son of Ares. What he does is that he gives them a necklace as a gift to help them with their quest and stuff, and it turns into a spider that leads them to the only god that can really tell them where Daedalus's workshop is. So, guys, I'm telling you, this out of all the names in this franchise, I struggle pronouncing this god's name the most. I would need to hear it said, but the guy with the forges, the one that Hera pitched off of Mount Olympus because he was ugly as a baby or something. But, him. And, so they're going there, and there's the Sphinx guarding the entrance, and Annabeth gets so pissed off at the Sphinx that she just, angers it, and they hurry on ahead while the Sphinx is distracted, which leads us into the next chapter. Alright, so in this next chapter, they find how about I call him H? Because, guys, I cannot pronounce this god's name for the life of me, but I just hope you guys know who I'm talking about. The guy with the forges. Like Daedalus, but a god, So H, they go talk to H, and he says that he will only help them find Daedalus's workshop if they help him with something first. And that something is going to see who's using his favorite forge at Mount St. Helens. And so they start heading there, but not before Grover and Tyson spot a weird tunnel with a lot of nature in it. And so they're like, well, we should go down there. Or at least Grover is, because he wants to go down there because he's like, this must lead to Pan. There's no way. This has to lead to Pan. So he and Tyson split from Percy and Annabeth to go down there. And meanwhile, Percy and Annabeth continue on to Mount St. Helens. And there, they learn that these old monsters from, way while ago. And, from, the First War. Basically, when I say way while ago, I mean, they're so old. They were, in the first war between the Titans and the gods. And they're called Telkhines, I believe. You guys know I'm bad at pronouncing this stuff at this point. All these names. But, basically, there, they learn that's who's using it. And after getting caught, Annabeth hurries to go get help from H. And Percy tries to hold it, basically he's holding them off, and he gets set on fire, and ends up doing what he did at those, really dirty horse stables, and he, big explosion, and that's, the last thing he really knows, until the next chapter. Alright, so this chapter 12, was probably the one that felt the most random to me. The most random yet, I have to say. Because as I said before, I just felt like they kept bouncing from place to place, and it just felt kind of random. So I was kind of just it kind of took away some enjoyment for me. And those guys, you don't understand. It took me so long to actually read this book, because it's I was enjoying it, but I just kept getting bored because it just felt like we were just going from place to place. But he ends up on an island that he learns is called, I'm probably going to mess up the name again, but Ogygia. And there, he gets nursed back to health by Calypso, who is probably one of the more well-known non-god characters. And we learn that she is a prisoner on this island, and that she's also the daughter of Atlas, so that makes her Zoe Nightshade's sister. Remember Zoe from the last one? It took me a whole book to actually end up liking Zoe. But basically, Percy stays with Calypso for a while, and she's kind of just I wish you could stay with me. You know the whole deal with Calypso is a hero will show up on her shore, and she'll be basically fall for that hero, and she's I wish you could stay, but the heroes never stay. And that's the same with Percy, because, I mean, H comes and talks to him, tells him everything that's going on, and then Percy decides, you know what, I have to go back, I have to go help my friends, you know? And so that is what happens, and this leads us into the next chapter. Alright, so now that he's off of Calypso's island, Percy goes back to the only place he can think of to go back to, and that is Camp Half-Blood. And when there, he learns that he's been gone for 2 weeks and that everyone thought he was dead. Like, literally, he literally walked in on his funeral that was going on in the amphitheater of the camp, the camp's amphitheater. I was kind of just like, dang, that's actually kind of awkward. It's kind of awkward. But, basically, they go to the main house. He goes to the main house, like Chiron and Annabeth and stuff, and tells them, yeah, I got stranded on an island and stuff. And then he privately talks to Chiron, and Chiron's like, look, you know, Chris Rodriguez, remember him? Yeah, no, you know, the guy Clarice is trying to help, you know, he's dying, and Quintus has disappeared. I don't know where Quintus went. He disappeared. He left Mrs. O'Leary, his pet hellhound, behind. Who knows where he went? And that night, Percy has a dream, but okay, wait, hold on. Before I get to that, they also agree that Percy and Annabeth need a mortal's help, and that's what Hera meant by Percy already knows how to find Daedalus's workshop. And they realize, wait, we need a mortal's help, and that will lead us to the next day. But first, Percy has a dream about King Minos' death. You know, how he died. It was basically murder. Daedalus's escape back into the Labyrinth, where it's the only place he could be safe now that he's gonna be wanted everywhere for murdering a king. And he also dreams that Luke's army basically found a half-blood. And because you know, for obvious reasons, he's like, oh shoot, is that Nico? They found Nico. But waking up in the morning, he and Annabeth go to see his mother, because obviously his mother thinks, or as far as his mother knows, Percy is dead, because it's been like 2 weeks and stuff. Remember, he walked in on his own funeral and stuff, so they go to her to just reassure her and stuff, and and that's when they go to the mortal they need help from, Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna say this right now, the next few chapters, oh my god, Annabeth! Oh my god, she hates Rachel so much, and I'm just like, okay, I get it, like, I know why, but, like, honestly, like, first of all, Percy's just being stupid. He doesn't know what's going on at all. It actually kind of annoys me. It's like, really? Really, Percy? You can't put 2 and 2 together? But also, like, Rachel does not seem to have any, like, romantic interest in Percy. Like, maybe she has some feelings for him, but I'm not really getting the vibes that she would pursue him. If you know what I mean, you know? I don't think she would try to have a relationship with Percy at any point. So, I mean, Annabeth, I'm pretty sure you're going to be good to just have Percy in the future if that still happens. But let's just get to the next chapter now that they're working with Rachel, and we have the trio that every quest must have. Because remember, Grover and Tyson are God knows where in the Labyrinth. Alright, so now that Annabeth, Rachel, and Percy are all back in the Labyrinth, they're following Rachel just to run into Kelly from the beginning and some other monsters that work for Luke. And these guys decided to bring them to an arena. And in this arena, well, there's Luke, and also there is, well, as the chapter title said, Percy's brother, but not Tyson. You see, not Tyson. This guy's name is Antius, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this guy's, well, a monster. So Percy 1v1 fights him, manages to kill him and stuff, and when that happens, Luke's like, okay, that's it, I'm killing everyone here but Annabeth. Which honestly, it's like, oh my gosh, for the last couple books, like, the last few books, like, Annabeth is just like so dead set on being like, Luke's good, there's still good in him, and it's like, look, I fully understand where she's coming from and stuff. Like, look, I know her backstory. I know that she and Luke used to be really close. I know she has a crush on Luke a little bit, just a little bit, maybe. Maybe a lot, I don't know. Well, she has more of a crush on Percy at this point, but she would get, I remember like the early books, she would get flustered, like, or at least in the first book she would get like flustered around Luke in like a, oh, I have a crush kind of way. But and basically, yeah, no, right as, the monsters are closing in, it's Percy. He uses the gift that Quintus had given him that he wasn't going to use because everybody's telling him, like, maybe you shouldn't trust Quintus. But he uses it anyway, and Mrs. O'Leary the Hellhound comes and saves them all. And then Percy, Rachel, and Annabeth run for it. And that leads us to the next chapter. Alright, chapter 15. There's actually somebody else with the trio right now, and that is a guy named Ethan Nakamura. And he's like a half-blood that was there hoping to join Luke's ranks or whatever, but he ends up leaving them. And so the trio camp for the night, and Percy dreams that a giant snake is attacking Tyson and Grover. And when he wakes up, there's like a giant earthquake that actually was caused by Grover in the dream, because obviously Percy's dreams are actually real life events, because that's, I guess that's how that works. I think in the case of Grover, I think that has to do with the empathy link that they still have from like book 2. And basically, after running for it for a while, he and the girls, Percy and the girls, as in like Annabeth and Rachel, they end up at Daedalus' workshop finally. And there they find none other than Quintus. And this is when they learn something that actually got me by surprise. Like, I don't know what I was expecting for them to find when they finally got to Daedalus' workshop. But this, I'll tell you, this was not really in my head. I just thought Quintus would be some terrible, like, twist villain kind of guy. But Quintus is Daedalus. But he's an automaton, which is basically like a robot. So, like, Daedalus' soul is in this, like, robot that is Quintus. So, it is Daedalus, just in a different body. If an automaton can count as a body. Then King Minos' ghost and Nico show up, and we learn how, like, Nico, the soul Nico wanted the trade for Bianca's life was Daedalus's, but he obviously was being used by King Minos, because King Minos is like, Daedalus is gonna die, and I'm gonna rise. And then, like, some monsters show up, like Luke's monsters show up. Luke isn't there with them, but, like, his monsters show up, and a fight breaks loose, and in the end, in the end of the fight, Percy, Annabeth, Rachel, and Nico all escape on improved version of the wings that Percy saw in that dream where Daedalus and Icarus escape the prison, but then Icarus dies because the wings were weak and whatever. Like, those wings, but, like, way, way improved, and that's how they escape, which leads us to the next chapter. Alright, so after escaping from Daedalus' workshop, they land in the Garden of the Gods, which I believe was New Mexico? I believe it was New Mexico. I didn't write down the state, but I do know it was the Garden of the Gods. It might have been New Mexico, or at least that's where they should have ended up by a later event in the book, but or is it Colorado? Oh wait, shit, it might have been Colorado. Anyway, it's around that area of the U.S., okay? Basically, they get a ride in a limo, which was, and, like, the way they did it seemed pretty odd to Percy, because, like, literally, Rachel was just able to walk up to the limo driver, say something, and he was canceled a different person's ride so that they could get a ride, so that our trio and Nico could get a ride. And basically what they're searching for is an entrance back into the Labyrinth so that they can get back to Camp Half-Blood a lot faster. So they can tell, Chiron what's happening and help them defend camp and stuff, since there's a giant army coming. But once they get back to the Labyrinth, they end up at Mount Tam from, like, the last book, if you remember, from the last book. And here is when Percy comes across Kronos' coffin, and he opens it, and inside is Luke's body. And this is when we learn, so basically this is when Kronos finally rises, using Luke's body as a vessel. And because they weren't able to do anything else, Percy and the others run for it again. So that means Percy. Alright, so that means Percy, Annabeth, Rachel, and Nico. That's it. So basically, they kind of have to run for it. And that leads us to the next chapter. Alright, so this chapter is pretty simple and straightforward. Our four characters are running through the labyrinth, and they get reunited with Tyson and Grover. And that is when they finally find Pan. And Pan, well, is dying. Because, because of, I guess deforestation's killing the Earth God or whatever he is. God of nature? I don't know what Pan's role was. I just know he's a god. Not an Olympian god, but like a god. But, as he's dying, he's talking to them. Literally directly saying words to everybody but Nico for obvious reasons, because apparently a son of Hades is not welcome anywhere. Poor guy. I feel so bad for Nico. Oh my god, poor guy. But basically, Pan ultimately dies, but not before he passes on his spirit into everyone around him and more. I'm pretty sure that basically just means like all the half-bloods and like the satyrs, because of stuff that like Grover tells them later. But that's, like I said, this is a pretty straightforward, simple-ish chapter. This is also when we learned that why Rachel seems to be kind of privileged, able to get that limo ride and stuff, because her dad is a big company man, and he is contributing to deforestation and stuff because he's building a bunch of buildings and stuff. He's a construction person, basically. Like a head of like a really big company, I assume. So running all the way from New Mexico to New York City via the Labyrinth, they, come up to the city, obviously, and they part ways with Rachel, since she's immortal, so she can't go into the camp and help out there or anything. So they leave Rachel and go back into the camp, where they find everybody's preparing for battle, and so they help, and then battle breaks out against a bunch of Kronos' army. No, okay, but Luke is not there though. Like possessed Luke is not there because thanks to Nico earlier when he first rised. When he first rised or whatever. And the battle goes on for a while, finally ending when Grover lets out this horrible screech called a panic, we learn later. And, the battle was kind of rough. Some half-bloods actually died, including one of Dionysus' sons. Mr. D, one of his sons, actually died, and I was like, oh, this guy's sad. Yeah, and, Daedalus shows up again, and he comes to make amends with everybody, and he's like, you know what, it's about time I just die, I've been around for 2,000 years, and also the Labyrinth, that army can just come right back through the Labyrinth, because when Daedalus dies, the Labyrinth dies, so he kind of just about dies, and the Labyrinth gets destroyed, and this leads us to chapter 19 of 20. I like how there's only 20 chapters, because, guys, the first book had, 22 chapters, and every single one since then, so far, anyways, have been 20 chapters. I'm like, yay, it's kind of shorter, because, I'm getting these from the library, and there's, a 2-week deadline with the option to get another week or whatever, and it's that's not enough time for me to read a book. Look, I like reading, but I don't, speed read, stuff like that, Alright, so in this chapter, Grover, obviously, is fighting with the Cloven Elders because they don't believe that Pan's dead, even though he is, and stuff, and they're, preposterous, really. So, Chiron's trying to defend Grover, obviously, and things are just getting more and more heated until Mr. D shows up, and this basically saves Grover from being exiled and stuff, and after this, Nico's like, I have to leave. I have to find answers about my past and stuff. And also, Nico's like, I don't belong here anyway. You know, there's a reason. He even says specifically to Percy, like, look, there's a reason why Hades doesn't have a cabin here. And I'm just like, I feel so bad. Like, Nico, like, oh my god, the poor kid is like, oh my god, the poor Nico, man. Like, also, what did Hades do other than be the god of the underworld? Like, from what I remember, like, he's done nothing wrong. Like, it'd be one thing if, like, he momentarily took Kronos' side in the first war or something, but what do you do to deserve being outcasted like this? And Nico, especially, has done really nothing wrong. Anything wrong that he did was largely because of King Minos, manipulating him, but basically, yeah, Nico's gone to go find answers about his past and stuff. And meanwhile, Mr. D talks to Percy about stuff, including, you know, his dead son and stuff. And he actually shows Percy that he helped Chris Rodriguez from earlier regain sanity. So that guy's no longer dying. And guys, I'm pretty sure Clarice is having a romance with Chris because, like, they were, like, holding hands and stuff. So I actually kind of was assuming that from the start because she seemed especially upset. And I'm like, it felt like the kind of upset that only someone who loves the person would feel. So it's like, I think Clarice likes Chris. And I guess it's mutual. And this leads us to the final chapter of the book. Final chapter. Camp's gone back to normal and stuff, you know, which, you know, felt weird to Percy after the big battle they had, even losing some half-bloods to death. Like, well, you know what, they're just in the underworld. We can go see them. Nico could take us on vacation there. I'm assuming. Anyways, basically, when Percy's back home, he has a birthday party, and Paul Blofeld from the beginning, Sally's boyfriend, so, you know, and actually possible future stepfather, because Paul tells Percy, hey, I want to propose to your mother, and, like, Percy's like, why are you asking me permission? And Paul's like, I'm not asking permission, I'm just telling you, man to man, you know, that's kind of what I want to do. Also, you're her son, so, like, why wouldn't I tell you? You know, that kind of thing. And then Poseidon shows up and gives Percy a sand dollar as a gift. And he's like, look, trust me, you're going to need it at some point. Just use it wisely. And then while Percy is out on the fire escape, planting a garden for Calypso, because something I didn't really mention was that Calypso got really sad upon hearing that there's really nowhere to grow a garden in New York City because it's a giant city. Like, Percy's like agrees to promise that he will grow a garden for her when he returns. So he's doing that when Nico shows up, and Nico tells him that he thinks he's found the answer to getting rid of Luke and Kronos forever. But that's when the book ends. I don't get to know what Nico says until I read the next one. So I don't know what Nico learned, but I'll know next book whenever I read that. So, yeah. Alright, so final thoughts. I'm gonna say right off the bat, while I did enjoy this book, like, this was a good book, it's definitely my least favorite so far. That doesn't mean it's bad. I just mean that I've had more fun reading the other one. So the highest I can give this book for my personal score out of 10 is 7 out of 10. You know, like I said, I just felt like the plot felt almost too random at times, which I guess was on purpose, because that's how the Labyrinth is. It's random. But I don't know. Also, I don't know if you've noticed this little girl. She's been in the background a lot. She's, I think I've mentioned before, my mom's a dog sitter, professional dog sitter and everything. She has a website, too. And this little girl is staying with me tonight. And yesterday night, as of, like, the night before I recorded this, like, she'll be long gone by the time this video, like, she'll be back home with her owner when this video comes out, but, yeah, if you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment below, anything you would like. And make sure to check out my social links. They're in my channel bio and in the description below. Well, they include my Instagram and my Discord. Speaking of Discord, my goal right now for our channel is to reach 50 subscribers, and when I do, I am going to open up a Discord server, which I think will be fun for my subscribers. So subscribe so that can happen, and also so that you can be part of it. And I will see you guys in another video. Goodbye now.